What's happening, everybody? Welcome into the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. And once again, joining me after a 1 week hiatus, it was still far too long, is the one and only Rachel Hotmeyer. Rachel, welcome back. Happy New Year. What are your New Year's resolutions?
I'd like to get back into a more stable workout routine. It's just impossible to do during the regular season of football and certainly during the playoffs. So we'll see where that takes me. Maybe read some more books.
Are you going to join the Aaron Rodgers book club and just pound through every one of his recommendations?
Absolutely not. But I will say his latest one has been recommended to me numerous times. The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F by Mark Ronson, I believe. Something says it's Mark Manson, but that reminds me of Marilyn Manson. But I do think it's Mark Manson, not the DJ Mark Ronson. So anyway, I've heard that one is good. I keep up with it. I don't read it, but
Fair enough. No, those are good resolutions.
What about you?
I am struggling mightily. For anyone who doesn't know me, I am an avid soda drinker. That is my vice. I don't need alcohol. I don't need drugs. I just need my caffeine and my sweet, mellow yellow Mountain Dew soda, etc. So I've been poisoning myself for years, and I've somehow switched to this.
Bailey Burmaster approves.
And it's the worst thing in the world. I don't recommend water to anyone. I know that it's supposed to be healthy and whatever, but it is nothing like the sweet nectar of Mountain Dew. And I am struggling. And I have insane caffeine withdrawals, Rachel Hotmeyer, insane caffeine withdrawals. So I am shaky, agitated, but I am trying to get healthier and not poison my body. So I'm drinking water from natural aquifers rather than the sweet nectar of Mountain Dew. And my life is worse because of it, but I'm going to hope that long-term it's better.
You will get used to it. I used to drink a little more soda in my life, and now I'm a big water drinker. Bailey Burmaster, if she ends up seeing this, she's not a Fiji drinker, but she's big on the purified water train. I know a couple people in TV that are hard into Fiji for whatever reason. Is there a reason you went with the bougiest of them all?
I have been told already that is the bougiest water, excuse me. So this is going to sound ridiculous. I love the bottle. So it's
gorgeous.
And I know if I drink 3 of these a day, so I drink with the first one will be like a fresh Fiji, and then I'll refill it throughout the course of the day. And I know if I have, three of them a day, that I've done a good job. And then I'll also I'll treat myself. So if I have, this is the lamest conversation. We're losing so many listeners.
Oh, I love it.
But if I finish one of my Fijis, then I get one vitamin water, which is a flavored water. So then I switch back to Fiji, and
I like the triple X vitamin water. That's my favorite flavor.
Yeah, I like the orange. I like the lemon, but either way, we'll get past New Year's resolutions, since I know everyone wants to just hear us talk Packers instead. I guess whatever, we can do that. But I want to start with the topic of the day. Aaron Rodgers, MVP. He is the Vegas favorite by far and away to win the MVP award. I want to ask you in a minute, actually, before I even heard of this current topic, my goal was to ask you if he needs to do anything additional on Sunday, assuming he does play, to solidify that. We can get into that in a second, but we had quite the story from Pro Football Talk, of all places, who called out Hub Arkush. And it's a bad take if Mike Florio is on the side of Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. You know how bad of a take it has to be. But Hub Arkush basically says that he is, just so everyone knows, he's one of the 50 Associated Press MVP voters, and he will not be voting for Aaron Rodgers because, quote, he's the biggest jerk in the league. So he was on a radio show in Chicago. He's known for his Bears writing and basically fandom and everything else. But this was his quote on the radio. I don't think you can be the biggest jerk in the league and punish your team and your organization and your fan base the way he did and be the most valuable player. He has been the most has he been the most valuable on the field? Yeah, you could make that argument, but I don't think he is clearly that much more valuable than Jonathan Taylor or Cooper Kupp or maybe even Tom Brady. So from where I sit, the rest of it is why he's not going to be my choice. Do I think he's going to win it? Probably. A lot of voters don't approach it the way I do. No freaking kidding, but others do who I've spoken to. So Hub Arkush has come out and said that this is not just a on the field award. This is an off the field award, apparently, as well. Rachel, I know this is semi news to you. I know we talked about it a little bit before you came on, but your immediate gut reaction to this statement from Hub Arkush, of all people.
I have a lot of ethical issues with this, and maybe this is where you guys will learn, but I feel like I've talked about it before on here that I am a pretty ethically standard held journalist, in my opinion. Most valuable player is a strictly football award. It's not like other NFL awards we see where you are awarded for your off the field achievements as well as charity work, stuff like that. Like, this is the most valuable player, what you are doing between the hashes. On top of that, there was a word you used, I forget which one it was. Punishment. The word punishing the fan base, his team, and all these things were maybe Rodgers' actions this year in some way, shape, or form a distraction, sure, but none of it punished the team. The Packers were fine for their own missteps in terms of COVID protocol, but his own actions of misleading the media did not punish other teammates, did not punish the fans. It was just an adversarial reaction. To me, his entire characterization of this is false. You can think whatever you want about Aaron Rodgers personally. He is far and away the most valuable player of 2021. And it's an achievement to do that back to back. He's going to lock up his fourth. And I don't think there's anything else he needs to do on Sunday to make that happen. He's proven it time and time again for 17 weeks, I guess 16 if you want to count the bye.
Yeah, it seems crazy to me that this would be, I mean, I guess nothing's crazy anymore, but the MVP is the most valuable player. If you want to talk about off-field awards, there are the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. If you don't want to vote for Aaron Rodgers for the Walter Payton Man of the Year and don't have him in that conversation, understood. If you want to not have him as the teammate of the year or whatever the other one is that Aaron Jones was nominated for, I understand. You can certainly make an argument. But player of the year is the on-field most valuable player on the field. And there's no question in my mind that is Aaron Rodgers. And I agree with you. I don't think he needs to do anything Sunday. If he maybe throws a touchdown or two early before getting taken off the field, icing on the cake, cherry on top, whatever you want to call it, doesn't need to do it. But I don't understand the line of thinking, frankly. And I think I honestly think that the AP should look at whether or not his vote should stand. And I say that because he even brought up as well that one of the things that they are not allowed to do is talk about who they're going to vote for. And he mentioned that he might even be on the edge by telling who he's not going to vote for by doing that. So, I mean, if your main rule is you can't talk about, who you're going to vote for, to me, he broke that in some capacity, and he is not in the right frame of mind to vote for the best player on the field, because that he's blatantly stated that's what he's not going to do. He's going to take into consideration all the other things. Now, maybe I could understand if this is like, I don't even know, like let's open this up for conversation. What if this was Antonio Brown? What if Antonio Brown was having the MVP
an incredible season,
the clear and away MVP season, and then he walks out on his team at halftime? Personally, I can see then, because you're affecting the rest of your team. You are
out
on your team and you are not. To me, that's different. I don't see this in that same capacity. And as you so perfectly mentioned, that what if the thought process is that he misconstrued his teammates by saying he was immunized instead of vaccinated. The team, the players, his teammates, they all knew he was not vaccinated.
Nobody was.
That was not news to them. So I don't get it.
No, and I think if you are talking about actions that clear and away impacted the game, but it's not like Aaron Rodgers' vaccination status had anything to do with that. There are plenty of players in the NFL this year who've gotten COVID and who have had to miss time because of that. So you're not saying it's because he missed a game that's why he is punishing all these external and internal groups. You're saying it's because of the whole, whatever you want to call it, misinformation about his vaccination status. And that's just simply not true. I think there's a lot of people who have taken that situation personally. And it's so interesting that it's someone in Chicago. So add whatever rivalry or emotional tie to it you want. But, that's another issue I have with writers is taking an emotional fandom connection into these conversations. You are an Associated Press writer. You are a voter. You should be the most emotionally removed from these conversations as possible. And this just doesn't sound that way.
Yeah. And, it's funny because as you know, Rachel, I am fan of said team. I am fan of said Packers. I have a media credential. And people will ask, from time to, well, how can you be a fan and you can, be, and I understand the separation of church and state, and I understand why that can be an advantage.
Church and state.
I know, right?
Packers
for the Packers,
church.
it is church for, whatever. But for me personally, I'm not saying everyone can do this. For me, when I'm doing this, when I'm talking, I'm on a fan hosted Pack a Day podcast. I will talk as a fan, but even this, I try to be more even keeled and kind of level headed about everything. When I'm watching the TV in my living room and the Packers are on, I am a hardcore fan. When I am sitting in section 102, row 35 in my season tickets, I am a hardcore fan. When I am in that press box, when I'm in that press room, when I have anything credential, if I am asking Matt LaFleur a question from this same space on Zoom, it is 100% provided. There's no fandom whatsoever. And it's, for me, I work in HR in my day job. It's no different than I'm going to have different conversations when I have my HR hat on than when I'm out of the office. There are two very different Andys when I am HR leader Andy and when I am out at a bar. Those are two very different Andys. It's the same thing where, I'm going to be a fan here. And if I'm with friends and whatever, when I go in and I put my work hat on, no longer a fan. And this to me, and we've seen it happen on numerous occasions to numerous people, this is the blurring of those lines between being a fan and being and like you said, an ethical reporter that's doing what's right, regardless of what your fandom says. And to me, there's no way to me that his fandom is not leaking into this. And we have proof of this in the past when he called out the Packers and the Clinton Dix and the Adrian Amos situation by basically saying that the Packers were wrong and the Bears were right in the move, and has obviously since been turned out to be completely false in that regards as well. So this is nothing specifically new to him. His quote on that, why can't fans separate? This is the best. Why can't fans separate actual analysis from fan by boy talk? I like the Packers and hope they're back in the hunt this year, but Clinton Dix is a more complete safety and a better player than Adrian Amos. Just deal with it, guys. Telling the truth isn't a slap at the Packers. That was Hub back on March 14th, 2019. Guess what, Hub? Your fanboy talk and your fan analysis got in the way again because Clinton Dix nor is in any way, shape, or form more complete a safety or a better player than Adrian Amos. Never was, never will be. End of story.
Yeah. And I think ultimately, it's not like journalists aren't people. It's actually funny. A colleague, Jeff Pearlman, put out a really good column this week about kind of journalism and fanish. It's not like on my day off, I'm watching college football game. I don't have a vested interest in things. I gamble on games I'm not covering. Like we all enjoy sports. We are all here because we love sports in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. But ultimately, based on those two rules you mentioned, I do think he's very clearly violated rules based on saying who he's not voting for and the emotional bias invested in it.
Couldn't agree more. And it'll be interesting to see if there is backlash on it. He's certainly getting some backlash. And like I said, if Mike Florio is calling you out for having a bad Packers take and defending Aaron Rodgers, because he was too, but Florio at the end of this says, frankly, Arkush's reasoning is ridiculous and calls into question whether the Associated Press should even be the arbiter of the NFL's MVP award if the AP can't find 50 voters who will consider players based on their on-field performance and not for the voters' subjective assessments of whether the players are, quote, bad guys. Then the NFL should stop using the AP for its official awards and instead find a panel of voters who will carefully consider players' on-field performance and vote without personal bias. So,
you know what? If you really want to start thinking about what players in the NFL are bad guys, there are plenty of opportunities out there for you to rag on teams for, signing rapists, for signing abusers, for signing criminals, for signing anything you want to call it. But if you're mad that someone's a jerk to you and you don't think he's the most valuable in between the hashes, I'm sorry, you're pathetic at this point. Like, your vote is fraud.
I couldn't agree more. All right, let's jump to a different topic, a more fun Packers related topic. I know that this topic has been beat a little bit to death in the praise that's gone out, but I can't help but bring it up again. The fact that this offensive line is playing as well as they are with the players that are on the offensive line. And I just want to go from left to right because it is worth pointing out here. Yosh Nijman, undrafted free agent who basically gets 2 redshirt seasons and plays his first meaningful football at all this season and his first starts ever this season. John Runyon, 6th round pick just last year.
Yep.
Just last year. All right. Lucas Patrick, undrafted player who has worked his way into a sort of this, journeyman NFL career, sometimes starter, sometime backup, but just sort of doing his darn best at that center position. But undrafted free agent who is, not making this huge contract, got a nice extension a couple of years ago, but nothing out of the, nothing crazy. Right guard, Royce Newman, 4th round pick this season, end of the 4th round. And then Dennis Kelly, end of the free agent wire signing. Like nobody else had wanted him. He gets a 1 year, not much more than the vet minimum sort of deal just before.
Probably borderline retirement.
Exactly. So it is insane that you could take those players from left to right and put together a decent offensive line, which they've been much better than that. And I think the other thing that's worth pointing out here again is go back to last season. And I talked to Aaron Nagler a little bit about this earlier in the week, but go back to last season. If I would have told you that going into the playoffs this year, at least as of now, the Packers would not have David Bakhtiari, their left tackle, Elton Jenkins, their left guard, Corey Linsley, their center, Billy Turner, their right tackle, and they would draft a 2nd round offensive lineman who ended up being pretty darn good. And guess what? They'd be without him as well.
I'd probably
and Rick Wagner, and no Rick Wagner either. Like that's 6 guys, or like 5 guys that they counted on heavily last year, like insanely heavily. And then a 2nd round rookie this year who was playing well when he was in. None of them are available or have been available to this line, and they're still performing well. It is absolutely insane.
It's crazy the 180 that this offensive line has made in terms of just player statue, if you will, and the success they've had. I've said time and time again, this offensive line has been the most fragile unit of this whole season, and the success they've been able to have consistently blows me away. They're not without mistake. Lucas Patrick has made some mistakes. Royce Newman has certainly made plenty, but Royce Newman is a rookie. I'm personally willing to afford him way more of understanding in those situations, especially when you are thrown into, I don't think he expected to start in the capacity he has been. It's just fascinating what they've been able to accomplish and how flexible they've really had to be week in and week out. They've had the most change surrounding them in a pretty volatile way, honestly, but they haven't let the noise get to them. Dennis Kelly with this COVID scare earlier this week, thankfully he's back. He's instrumental in that tackle position. And honestly, if they were to go without him next game, thank God it's Detroit in a quote unquote meaningless game. But honestly, I don't know what they would have done if that situation was going into the playoffs with, games on the line.
They're a legitimate starting 5 offensive linemen for teams that have played far worse than this group that is playing without 4 of their top 5 starters. And again, 2 key players, including arguably the best center in the league, that aren't back from a season ago. I don't think there is a team in the league that does a better job of developing a position from basically scratch than the Packers do with offensive linemen. And that's from scouting to actually drafting the players. So, Brian Gutekunst, finding and drafting these players, to the development, to the coaching along the offensive line with Steno, as well as Luke Butkus. And then a coach that has the philosophy of, we're going to get the best 5 guys on the offensive line. And again, being prepared to put whatever 5 guys are the best out there each and every week based on matchups, whatever they need to do. From scouting to GM to coaching to obviously the position coaches, there's not a position to me on any team that does it as well as the Packers do with offensive line. And to me, there's also nothing that the Packers do as well as developing their offensive linemen. And I think this is an insane testament to their ability to do that. And that's not to say that Aaron Rodgers doesn't deserve credit for getting rid of the ball quicker, that Mercedes Lewis doesn't deserve credit for his effort as a blocking tight end, that Jones and Dillon don't deserve credit for their ability to pick up blitzes behind those offensive linemen, and Matt LaFleur and Nathaniel Hackett for putting together game plans that can be successful with an offensive line that's missing 4 of their top guys. That's not to say any of that. All of that is a part of this, but cohesively with all of the things I just mentioned, what they've been able to do with the offensive line is pretty darn incredible.
I do. And maybe this is the New England childhood in me, but I do think, it's a comparable system to the way New England develops obsolete pass catchers, if you will. But sure. I do fully admit that Green Bay has the offensive line market cornered. It's almost a factory system at this point, and it really is mind-blowing the way that they funnel this talent and their potential and really squeeze the juice here. It's something I really admire about the organization and their dedication to it.
Yeah, I think Dennis Kelly deserves a lot of credit for the way that he's playing. I think I've sort of whispered this on Twitter the other day. I actually think he's been slightly outplaying Billy Turner since he came in. It is a small sample size. It is just 200 snaps. I'm not saying that Billy Turner was playing poorly in any way, shape, or form, but I actually think in these last few games, if anything, there's not been a drop off, and I'm not actually convinced that it hasn't been a slight improvement. Which is, again, it's not a bash on Turner. It's just more of I
don't disagree with you.
To Dennis Kelly. So great with him. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you about the offensive line, because there was some talk about this, some Twitter convo as well. Would you play David Bakhtiari in the playoffs if he cannot play prior to that? And I think the thought process here, of course, is Yash is playing pretty darn well. You know what you're getting. And is there a risk that you take Yash out and Bakhtiari plays his first snaps and he's just not quite there yet? He has some rust, and that actually is more of a detriment than just putting the guy who's been out there already.
I think what's funny is in this whole situation is if he's ready, Rodgers wants him in. Rodgers wants his best buddy back. You saw him on the Sox when he broke the record. This is exactly what he wants. I also do think there is enough patience going into this situation that all parties involved wouldn't put him in unless he felt 100% ready to take NFL playoff snaps. But there is, of course, that question. And I also think it's understandable to go into the game with expectations of, okay, you're not playing 100% of snaps. We're going to rotate you with Yash and see how it keeps going. I think this could be a flexible situation if they're willing to let it be, but I just don't know if the thinking is there. I think they really want to gun it with him, and I hope he's healthy enough to do so. I know he's missing it very much.
Yeah, I know he won't be out there unless the staff feels 100% confident, probably over 100% confident.
Right. You have to think at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the other thing is that I trust David Bakhtiari unequivocally. I don't think he's going to go out there and just,
he would never put the game at risk.
Exactly. I don't think there's any chance of that. He's not going to, risk Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs if he's not ready to play. And I also wouldn't put it by Bakhtiari if he goes out there and he plays the first 10 or 15 snaps and he realizes he can't, whatever you say, put in Yash. That's just the kind of player he is. So I know he's fighting to be out there, but I trust the big giraffe, as Aaron Rodgers calls him. And
can we talk about that? Because giraffes are skinny.
I don't know. Maybe there's a different, maybe there's a different reason for the nickname.
I'll figure it out.
Have you been to the new zoo and you feed the giraffes the leaves? Maybe Bakhtiari just eats big green leaves. You never fed the giraffes at the new zoo yet?
No, I haven't been to the new zoo yet.
Well, you need to get out to the new zoo and you need to go. Well, not now. I think they might still actually, I don't know. But once spring
comes. Where do the animals go?
I don't know. I'm not an entomologist.
All right. I'm going to figure this out. I'll ask where the big giraffe comes from.
Yes. Yeah. It's a good, see, that's the journalistic integrity that you have. That
we've got Rodgers speaking today when this airs. So you know what? If I can squeeze in, I'll figure something out about the big giraffe.
Just do a 2-part question and ask him something super serious. And then it's this long drawn out, Will DS question. And then be also, can you tell me where big giraffe comes from?
I'll work on it. It is a bummer that practice is indoors this week. So no media allowed. So we'll just throw in the big giraffe question out of nowhere.
Workshop it a little bit tonight and then we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
All right, one other question I wanted to get to: this Packers Lions game, a glorified exhibition game on paper, even if they play to win it, even if they go out and try to win, ultimately at the end of the day, it's a glorified exhibition game. Means nothing for Green Bay, means more to Detroit that they lose so they can continue with their draft seeding as is. But in the end, it doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. Is there something that you would ideally like to see from this game?
I need to see Jordan Love snaps. I think it's just unequivocally unfair that in the winning situations they've had this season, they've still held him back so conservatively and not given him the chance to self-scout at that rate. I think at this point in time, he is owed that. I'm not saying, it's not fair that he sits back, because just like Rodgers sat, backups are supposed to bide their time. And I fully believe in that system. However, I think at this point, it's unfair how much they're holding him back when they've had plenty of situations, even half a quarter, able to put him in for more than the victory formation. We obviously got a little more Sunday night, but that's not enough when you're coming to the end of your season and potentially a big change at quarterback.
No, I agree. And to be fair for those listening, if the obvious answer seems to be no injuries, I asked Rachel, what is the biggest thing that you're looking forward to the game, not including no injuries, because obviously no injuries would be the key to this game. But I'm in complete lockstep with you, Rachel. I think that's the biggest thing to watch for in this game is still Jordan Love. I expect him to play in some capacity. I would think at least a half. We'll see what that ends up being. But I think him getting those reps one way or the other is invaluable for him. It's invaluable for the organization because while I think this team is more on the all in on Aaron Rodgers train moving forward than they were maybe at the same point last year, I still think to be able to make a fully educated decision on everything, you want to see as much of Jordan Love as possible, because as insanely great as back-to-back MVP Aaron Rodgers is, if you believe at any point in time that Jordan Love is a top 10 franchise quarterback that can be your quarterback for the next decade plus, that is not something that's easy to pass up on. And I'm not saying he's looked like that. I'm not saying that they feel that way, but I'm just saying the more intel and information that you can have, because at this point in Aaron Rodgers' career where Jordan Love is at right now, he freaking stunk too. He did not look anything like the Aaron Rodgers that we know now. So the more reps you can get and the more intel you can get, I think is valuable for everyone. And I think Jordan Love deserves that. And he deserves to audition either for Green Bay or potentially for some team that might want to trade for him in a quarterback class in this draft. That's not exactly the most exhilarating in the world either. So 1A, absolutely. That's what I'm looking forward to watching.
Yeah. And it's also like they drafted him with that potential in mind. There's a reason you picked him in that fashion. And even today on Pat McAfee, Rodgers said, you got to get off the ride at some point, nobody's stupid. Retirement is looming, whether it's in 2 months or whether it's in another year or so on. So at the end of the day, they drafted him. He's, ran scout team. He's done all these things. You have an opportunity to give him more NFL reps. There's absolutely no reason to take that away from him as a player, as a team. For both sides of this relationship, it's so necessary.
Agreed. And while I agree with and respect these guys need to play in 3 weeks off, is like the last thing you also want is just somebody jamming up Rodgers' toe and all of a sudden he becomes far less mobile or anything like that, or anything like that. So again, I think it makes sense to get these guys some snaps and get them in some rhythm. But once you see what you need to see, get them the heck out of there, keep them healthy, and give Jordan Love that opportunity and see what he can do. See what he can do with the offense. There were some good things he did on tape so far this year. There's some really bad things he's done. And the more reps you get, the more he's going to be able to clean some of that up.
Yep. I completely agree. It's just, you have a rare opportunity in front of you. Not everybody gets a meaningless week 18 game. And this is very similar to a lot of conversations around bowl games this weekend and players opting out and the rest versus rust versus, valuing the future of your career. Obviously, there was an Ohio State wide receiver who had really great insight on this, in my opinion. And, these guys treating it like minor league games, if you will, because that's what they are in the system. But at the end of the day, these guys are already here at this, and these games are very different opportunities.
Yeah, very much so. And as I talked about yesterday, I trust Matt LaFleur's, pulse on this over anything. If he feels they need to play, then I believe they need to play. And if he feels they need to rest, I believe they need to rest. And I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt on that. Rachel, any final thoughts before we get out of here today?
I'm excited that the road to the Super Bowl from the NFC leads through Lambeau. There was just too much emptiness there last year. So I'm excited for more opportunities to be at Lambeau with fans. I just can't get enough of that.
From a reporter, pure entertainment standpoint, what matchup would you most like to see in the divisional round? Packers versus, it has to be Cowboys, right? McCarthy and
for the story. I really do love that. It'd be so amazing, the storylines, and granted there'd be a lot of overlap from everybody on that, but it's just stories like that are so powerful, whether it's the images, the video, the writing, the quotes. Like I just think there's so much to dissect there. I think it'd be really meaningful. From a football standpoint, I'm also kind of in on the Rams as an opponent. I again just think that'd be an exciting game, but obviously for so much more behind it, the Cowboys have to be where we go.
There's not many bad ones, right? Because you've got the McVay Rams, Packers beat them last year, Packers beat them this year, Stafford, Rodgers, like the Odell Beckham thing where it was between the Rams and the Packers. Like Rams Packers is still a very dynamic matchup. Of course, Brady Rodgers, insanely dynamic matchup. McCarthy Rodgers or McCarthy Packers, an insanely crazy story there. Cardinals, you have sort of the overarching end of game Rasul Douglas interception from earlier this season. Even if a team like the 49ers ends up in the playoffs, right? You've got Kyle Shanahan, the 2 years ago NFC Championship where the 49ers just ran it down Green Bay's throat, and certainly past failures against San Francisco as well. If the Saints get in, you've got the week one. All right. Yeah. The Saints don't, are probably starting Taysom Hill, but they didn't, it wasn't like Jameis Winston won them that game. Yep. Green Bay couldn't score on offense in that game. There's not a lot of, Packers Eagles is probably about the only thing that you would look at and be like, nah, not a whole ton to, write home about there. Every other game at least has some level of intrigue to it.
I agree. I just think what the Packers have put out over the last season and a half, every matchup is exciting for the anticipation of what this team has been through and the personal storylines, Brady Rodgers, stuff like that, and revisiting what the noise was surrounding this whole team this time last year. I just think it's awesome to have so many great matchups on deck.
Completely agree. Can't wait. Playoff football is just the absolute best. I'm jittery with excitement just thinking about it. I can't wait. I also can't wait to talk to you again next week, Rachel. This is always amazing. Appreciate you joining me. Where can we find you on Twitter? Where can we find your work?
You can find me at Rachel Hopmeyer. All my stuff is through NBC 26, the official Packers station of Green Bay.
The official Packers station. Rachel, awesome stuff as always. I will talk to you next week. I'm sure I'll talk to you before then, but we will talk on here next week. For those listening, make sure to subscribe, make sure to go out and follow Rachel, and make sure to check this out 365 days a year. We have you covered every single freaking day. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.